It was never in doubt. Before the game, Tottenham, when did Tottenham ever win a big game? When did Tottenham ever go somewhere and surprise you and win? Against the odds. The odds were massively in favour of Liverpool. They're at home at Anfield. They're the best team in the country, possibly the best team in Europe right now. But it's not just their Spurs team. They never shock you. They never do something out of the ordinary. I'm trying to think the last big game they won. And I probably have to go back to that Ajax game in the semi-final of the Champions League. And I was in the stadium that night. And I don't want to take you all the way from Tottenham. They were very lucky. They got battered for most of the game. A bit of a freak. I mean, they got 2 goals in the last minute. But whenever they go into a big game as a football club, no one ever believes they're going to win. And that's not me as a Liverpool fan. Those Tottenham fans, they hate it, right? Not one of them would have believed that they'd have gone home and they'd have gone to Wembley. They just won't. Isn't it strange that Liverpool put 4 past them? Liverpool are in the final, and there is no doubt amongst the group here that Tottenham are the story. Yeah, I think because we just expected a bit more from them tonight. I just cannot get my head around not having one shot on target in a semi-final. I know the 1/2 chance when Son manufactures something great, step over and hits the bar, but even then you just felt the game had gone for them. And I just think when you when you come into a semi-final, and I know it's always difficult when you're 1-0 up and you come to Anfield, and we all talk about the pressures and the noise and everything that goes around it, but I just felt, first off, they were trying to play it from the back. The goalkeeper's edgy in midfield. They never showed any courage to get on the ball and make things happen. They were so abject. And it wasn't the inexperienced players, it was the experienced ones that I was looking at and thinking, well, go on then, lead the team. Son's your captain. Show something, show some character. Get on the ball. Kulusevski, nothing. And I think it's too easy to say, well, yes, they have had injuries. They've absolutely, Van de Ven, I say less about Romero because I think I watch him enough and he can give away a lot of goals when I watch him. But Van de Ven is obviously a big miss. But there's still enough players there to cause Liverpool some problems. I've seen squads beating Tottenham lately. I look at Ipswich. Do you think Ruud van Nistelrooy would have loved to have had that Tottenham squad beforehand, but they still get beaten by Ipswich? Crystal Palace beat them. There's so many different games. I know you did the Everton game not long ago, Jamie. Everyone seems to find a way of beating this Tottenham side. And I think the manager right now, he baffles me with his tactics sometimes. I think he's completely lost in what he's trying to do. He said, this is what I do. You have to adapt. You have to change. And if you haven't got the personnel that you want, then you have to make sure that your tactics are different. You look at what Newcastle did yesterday. Eddie Howe showed a way of beating an Arsenal side by going man-to-man, being aggressive. Newcastle will not give the respect that Tottenham gave them today. And I know Newcastle are a better side, but they're more aggressive and they'll get on the front foot. Tottenham showed them miles too much respect today. We've all been critical of the manager and me. Going back to the 6-3 game, when I look at those 3 midfield players today, I don't do it a disgrace. Those Tottenham midfield players, no matter who your manager is, you're playing the semi-final. We're talking about them getting on the ball. But we all come into this game, and if you're a Tottenham man, you know first 15 minutes, half an hour, Liverpool are going to be on the ball, going to put you under pressure, but get after them, be aggressive, maybe forget the ball the first half an hour, be aggressive, even if you're counting your own half. It was still so easy for Liverpool to get to the edge of the box. I think this is where they're at the moment. I've seen them all season. How bad they are, how poor they are. I saw them against Everton, they got blown away. That 3 in the first half played Leicester last week, and you're thinking, unless they turn up to the Tottenham Stadium, surely they can't win. They hadn't won in 7, lost 7 on the bounce, and they'll come and do. Spurs have got this performance in them. And that's why I came here, and I said for Spurs to go through, they had to play to their level, and Liverpool had to dive in off night, and it couldn't be any worse. It went the other way. Liverpool absolutely hounded them all over the pitch. They were far superior to what Spurs were. But pre-match, we were all saying, actually, that looks like quite a physical Tottenham team there. They brought Danso in, that midfield 3. We were all saying, it looks like a physical team, but it wasn't a physical team. I think he picked that team thinking, okay, we're not going to come here. How we've criticized Dan's post. Let's not forget we've called him naive at times, putting fullbacks into midfield, leaving themselves open. That looked like a team that was picked before the game, was actually saying, you know what? We're going to try and make it difficult for Liverpool. We're going to go with powerful players. No number 10s, just 3 proper central midfield players. So in terms of actually getting on the ball, yes, they lost the ball for the first goal, but I thought that was a team to try and stop Liverpool and nullify Liverpool. And I think, well, okay, that's what most teams would probably do, come into Anfield with a 1-0 lead. But those 3 midfield players, didn't anybody put a challenge in? So easy to play against them, so easy. It was shocking, but bearing in mind, when we were at Newcastle last night, one of the things that was specifically said to us by Eddie Howe and Kieran Trippier, amongst others, we knew we had to go out and be physical and get in their faces. Get into them. I think that was a massive banner behind it. It was, in the Gallagher end, they said get into them, make it difficult for them, set the tempo, and that's always a thing that you have to do here. And I totally get the game now where you have to play out from the back, but there are times, and more than any place in world football right now, this isn't the place to do it. The keeper gets the ball, he's passing it to his left back or right back, they're playing out, they're trying to play into midfield, they're losing the ball, you're asking for pressure, it wasn't working. So then you have to think, all right, well, why don't we then clip one into the space? You've got Son who's quick enough, you've got Kulusevski, or you've got Richarlison. Try and get hold of something. Oh, Virgil van Dijk was too strong for Richarlison, but maybe try something else. Maybe come up against the other centre-back, Konate. But they were just playing into Liverpool's hands. Liverpool wanted that game, and that's exactly what Tottenham gave them. And it was just, you cannot keep doing that. It's just a fridge. And welcome to part 2 of the Nolan Baker podcast. You had part 1 live from the Emirates last night. We're at Stamford Bridge. And what better place to start on what we've just seen here, Nolan? Chelsea coming from behind to win against West Ham. What did you make of Chelsea's performance here? Well, the old adage of the points are the most important thing, I think was signified most by the celebrations of the coaching staff at the end and how much of a relief it was. There's 4 or 5 of them in a huddle. I think they recognized that they just needed 3 points tonight, and it wasn't easy. The first half, I was frustrated with Chelsea last week. I spoke about that quite a lot after the City game. But in this first half, I'm not sure it's just Chelsea either. This habit that teams are developing of, the opposing team are getting back into a shape which is deep and compact, which is not new. And then the attacking team, the home team invariably are sort of just recycling it and playing safe passes. And what you're finding is that the talented players like Cole Palmer, Enzo Fernandez, then going deeper or wider to get on the ball. And the game hasn't changed that much from when I played. That I remember Sir Alex Ferguson used to have to urge Wayne Rooney, don't get frustrated. Don't start coming deeper. Stay in there. Be patient. We'll get it into you in the end. If we keep passing it quickly, eventually we'll get it into you and we'll get a little bit of life. But we have to have you in there where it matters. And so, Cole Palmer started to get into those positions in the second half. But in the first half, he was coming far too deep. Chelsea recycling it, playing far too safe. And it's something that happens far too often, I think, in modern football, where teams are micromanaged with an inch of their lives and they've got such structure in their attacking play. And you mentioned it, that spontaneity is gone. What happens is when something happens, when there's an event in a game, a sending off, a goal against a grade, all of a sudden the game comes to life and see the Premier League. All of a sudden we see the Premier League, and that was the last half an hour, 45 minutes. We saw a proper game. The first half an hour, 40 minutes, same at Arsenal, City on Sunday, and so many other Premier League games, we're letting games drift and sort of teams are sleepwalking into trouble. And Chelsea have done that. They've got away with it tonight. They've got a little bit of fortune. We'll talk about the goals in the second half that came. But there was definitely, I think, some improvements to make. They're a young team that's been said many times. They've got a maturity to come and they've got development to come. And they've got, leaders, I think, in that dressing room who might emerge in the next few years. But good 3 points, but quite a lot of work to do. Is this the sort of night that will help them on their progression, sort of dealing with the adversity, things going against them in the first half? Yeah, and look, sometimes it helps you to lose, to sort of pin you back and ground you and think, we need to improve. And sometimes if you can sort of look at the video tomorrow and Maresca can look at the video with his players tomorrow or the day after, whenever it is they look at it, through a lens of positivity, which is, look, we've won the game, we've got the 3 points. So everybody feels a lot better. The fans are leaving a lot happier. You can then start to point out the criticism, I think, a lot better as a coach, because you can say, look, lads, look at this in the first half. We can't do this. It happened at City. It's happened here. It's happened in a couple of matches recently that you played in. We've got to stop doing this or else we're going to lose points. We're going to lose games. And you're not going to achieve what you want in football collectively. And that's really important. So I'm sure you'll take them through the video on the analysis and from a position of strength, because they've won the game and the players feeling good about themselves because they've got back into it in the second half. Look, we need to get this right because we can't allow large portions of games just to shift by and move by. Are Chelsea about where you'd expect them to be in the 4th position after those around them missed out this weekend? Yeah, I think they're in a good position. I think they're having a good season. I think the shock probably is that run they went on was in a period where you would have thought they had picked up many points the opponents they had on the table. So I think that, but where they are just on reflection from the start of the season, I actually had them in 4th. I watched them in the first game of the season. I really like what I saw. And you're going to get with a young team, you're going to get this roller coaster. You're not going to get this sort of, if you like, perfect sort of, if you like, climb to the top. It is going to be a little bit like that, where they're going to pick up these lessons along the way. And we're seeing that they need improvements in the 2 or 3 positions. And I think they'll know that as well. It's not just a case of these young players will develop and they'll have enough to win a league. They'll need to add to the squad, and they've added a lot to the squad already, but in goalkeeper, centre forward, maybe a centre back, they're going to need to improve. But they are on the right track, and they're in a good position, and where I thought they would be at the start of the season. Just a couple more on Chelsea tonight. The goalkeeping situation was a big topic ever since what happened at the Etihad. And also here against Wolves, with Robert Sanchez becoming a liability. Did we see from Philip Jorgensen tonight anything to suggest that he might be the solution? It's too early to say. I think there were a couple of nervy moments were there, which is natural for a young goalkeeper coming in under such pressure. Having seen his mate and his teammate, who he trains with every single day. Goalkeepers train so closely. I know all football players do, but goalkeepers, they go out together, they work together, and they don't want to see their mates suffer as much as they want their chance themselves. And the pressure that will have built on Jorgensen, you could see in the first half, it's been quite a comfortable night for him. I think the tougher tests are to come, where obviously he'll get put under a lot more pressure, and we'll see what happens then. And West Ham, a lot of you know, the other conversation coming into this was the return of Graham Potter, who was bombed out here, didn't go well for him here at Chelsea. He will be obviously disappointed with the manner of the defeat, but there was a lot of positives in there. Oh yeah, I think he'll be looking at the game from a point of view tomorrow, talk about sort of watching it back with his players. I think he'll be looking at it and saying, lads, if we can play like this and do some of the things that we've done here tonight for the majority of games, in the rest of the season, we're going to pick up a lot of points and we're going to win football matches. I thought defensively they had structure. I thought they were a threat when they got the ball into Bowen, who's a massive player for them. But when you had Bowen on the pitch and Kudus up top in the second half towards the end, and you had Ings coming on, they did look like a real threat. West Ham, I thought the defensive shape was excellent. I really did. I even thought at the start, the second half of 15 minutes, not only did they have the defensive shape, but they also, from that defensive shape, were able to spring out and attack and play really good football. I thought they were confident. They were the most confident team. It took Maresca to make 4 changes for Chelsea really to get into a position whereby they got back into the game. So I think Graham Potter will be happy with a lot of what he's seen. I think he'll be angry with the decision on the first goal. I mean, that's a definite foul by Colwell. He's just rash. Caldwell comes out and converges on his own defender. So all of a sudden, Caldwell sees that and thinks, I better stop Bowen going, sort of closing him down, and just cuts across him and takes him out. I mean, if you can't see that as an assistant referee over that far side looking across the pitch, and a referee, it's disappointing. And then there's this thing of VAR not being able to go back so far. And it's quite vague, but maybe it's not that attacking phase. But then the second goal, I always say no own goal is a fluke, because I always think if a defender is having to lunge in the box, that there's usually a positional error, or you've not quite your friend Mr. Carragher. But yeah, he was the best at it, wasn't he? But actually, that was probably, as you know, that was hard lines, that one. That was one way you try to block across as a defender, and he couldn't have envisaged that was going to come up off the edge of his boot and loop wickedly the way in which it did over Areola. So there is some misfortune for West Ham tonight in the goals they've conceded. Well, let's focus on the positives. They've signed Evan Ferguson, who hasn't had a great time of it at Brighton for one reason or another, but he's got a fresh start under a man he knows well, Graham Potter, who brought the best out of him at Brighton. If you've got Kudus on one side, Bowen on the other, and Ferguson through the middle, that's quite exciting for a West Ham fan. You've got a threat, and you've got Paqueta obviously to come back as well. I mean, you've got a real threat. You've got people who can feed them as well. So I think that, Graham Potter, I think he'll be enthused. I think he'll be enthused about what's coming and what, Ferguson obviously players to come back from injury. I think he'll be enthused by the defensive structure tonight and how they've held it together. Against Chelsea, we've got some really talented forward players. And if Chelsea thrown all their forward players at West Ham tonight to get to the point where they've won the game. So yeah, I think he'll be happy. I think he'll realize that, there's a big job to do, but he'll be thinking, actually, I fancied this a little bit. There's a good group of players here that I can work with and some top talents. Now that's tonight's game. I know that a lot of Manchester United fans will expect us to react to what happened at Old Trafford yesterday, another defeat. That's now 5 home defeats already for Ruben Amorim. He made some curious decisions with the selections copy, Mainu playing through the middle, leaving the strikers on the bench. I mean, I know you've touched on a lot of this so far already, but every week when you think, okay, well that's it, bottom down, it seems to get worse. What's he trying to do? The only thing I can think he's doing is one of two things. Experiment to the point whereby he's just trying to find a solution that works, that he likes in the system that he wants to play, or he doesn't like the strikers that he's got. I mean, I have to say, when I saw Kobe Mainu up front yesterday, and I thought Fernandes was going to play as that in that position, or something, Garnacho might play up front and Fernandes to the right. Emirates Stadium, ahead, of course, of Arsenal against Manchester City, which we will get to, Gary, but let's talk to you about this move for Marcus Rashford to Aston Villa on loan with an option. Your thoughts, please. Well, I think the first thing to say is that Marcus Rashford had to leave Manchester United, particularly after Ruben Amorim's comments in the last couple of weeks. There was no way back for him, so he had to find another club. There's a number of things about the Villa move that I think are in his favour. One, he's going to a better football team at this moment in time. Manchester United fans won't like sort of hearing that, but Villa are far better than United. I think the style of play of Villa, they're not a high-press team. They sort of play like a mid-slip and then they sort of do counter-attack really well. So I think that will suit him because he's not someone who really has pressed well at Manchester United. The main thing for me is that he's playing for one of the best managers and coaches, I think, in the world, in Unai Emery. And he's got nowhere really else to go now. Marcus Rashford, it's not worked out for him with the last few coaches at Manchester United. So if he can't make it work with Unai Emery, then obviously he becomes the problem. I think it's a big opportunity for him to have a good 3 or 4 months and get his career back on track, because there's no doubt he's had a nightmare in this last 12 to 18 months. On and off the pitch, it's all gone sour for him. And Manchester United will obviously want him to succeed as well, because they'll want the money, obviously, that will help them get better players in the future, which Ruben Amorim wants. Yeah, it looks like Villa are going to cover around 2/3 of his salary. They have brought in Marco Asensio as well, another winger. They have quite a lot of wingers, Gary. Do you think Marcus Rashford's going to start? Look, they've got enough games going on in the Champions League, the FA Cup. They've obviously got a fight to get back into the top 4 this season. I think he will start. I think that he's Marcus Rashford at his best. He's an excellent player and will be a real threat. And he could get into that Villa team. What Marcus Rashford needs to do is get all the distractions out of his life that may be occurring and concentrate on his football again. And hopefully, without maybe the spotlight that Manchester United brings, Villa might just be the perfect club for him, but we'll obviously find out very quickly. Let's talk Arsenal against Manchester City then. It feels, with the way that Liverpool are going about their business, that Arsenal today, Gary, really need to make a firm statement. Yeah, and it feels like they're having to do that every single week. Liverpool are squeezing them really hard, and it must feel for Arsenal like they're climbing hills at this moment in time just to stay in the race. I mean, they've got a couple of challenges, Arsenal, I think, at this moment in time, and that one. They've got to win the game that they have in front of them, which is Manchester City, which will be tough. But then they've got this sort of mental side, this thing that Liverpool, it should be them. When Manchester City drop off in this last couple of years, Arsenal have been there. So they will have been thinking that if Manchester City drop off this season, that, they would be at the top. And they're not. And Liverpool look like they're really pulling away at this moment in time. So the pressure really is on Arsenal. And you're right, they need a statement performance again. And they're going to need more of them as the season goes on, just to even be there if Liverpool do slip up. City are in decent form, Gary. What does your gut tell you today about the match that will take place behind you? I think Arsenal win, and I think there's more on it for them. I think that the midfield area will be crucial. I think Kovacic and Gundogan, I think in big games, they really can struggle. They are in decent form. I like Mahmoud on the left. I do like, actually, the potential of that partnership that I saw last weekend between Guardiola going really sort of outside him and Mahmoud making the runs inside. So I think they'll have some threats to deal with Arsenal, but I do fancy Arsenal to win this game. Gary, thank you as ever. We'll speak to you next week. Take care. See you soon. Hi there, I'm Lily Bow, studio host of 1 Hour Sports coverage of the Premier League. Do you think what we're looking at there, that stops him ever being the best player in the world, if you like? So when I think of you, you're a great goal scorer, referring to Thierry Henry, but you'd say you're a great player. You can be up there with the best players in the world. Maybe Mbappe as well, he's a goal scorer, but he does a lot more. Would you ever describe someone who's just a goal scorer as one of the best players in the world? Can you ever get like a win the Ballon d'Or? Look, you had guys in history that were known as goal scorers, but were they ever the best player in the world? Yeah, okay, but you still need to be able to hold the ball. Was Alan Shearer a guy that was going to go down the line and step over people, but he could hold the ball and pass it back? David Trezeguet, flick it back, go to the box and do what he has to do. Look, if people can challenge Mbappe for not holding the ball well at Real Madrid, they can surely challenge Alan. Do you think he will change? No. Yeah, but he's not in the team for that. He's brought the team to running behind. What they're saying is totally right. But the thing is, from my point of view, he's got to be aggressive. You see Saliba bullying him, you see the size of him. I've seen him, I think it was Dunk a couple of seasons ago, barge him off the ball, really use his strength. But he's not even doing that. That is my concern. I don't expect Alan to be delicate. I do one-touch and two-touch passing because that's not his game. They brought in Mbappe, played off each other today. He will be more delicate, but I expect him to use his frame more. As a defender, he's making it too easy for me at this moment in time. If you go really tight, he loses the ball. If you give him time, he needs to figure out how best to use it in this team. Can I ask you one question? We've seen some great teams. Pep Guardiola, different strikers. Do you think this Man City team are better than the Manchester City teams before that had Haaland or without Haaland? Is there a better Manchester City team with him? It's debatable. They were in trouble with him. They didn't win a treble without him before. So people will go, yes, no. I think the whole team as a whole is dropping, not only Haaland. We all know that Haaland will suffer if his team is not dominating the game. It will be less effective than a guy that can run in beyond or can run into the channel. But if his team is dominating, we all know he's going to score a goal at will. But to go back to a point, whether you are a goal scorer or not a goal scorer, or you hold the ball well or you don't hold the ball well, when you are one-on-one with a centre-back in the middle of the park and one centre-back left the field, missed the ball with the left-back, and him being out of position, you don't spin. You really don't spin. Now, you don't spin. Now, you don't go. Now, you don't go. It can be anything in the world. I can understand anything. You don't go there. That's your strong point. Holding the ball is not your point. Running in behind, sometimes you don't do it. You don't run there. It's a yes, 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 and yes move. You say he's not going to change. He's just signed a 9-year contract. Ruben Amorim's tactics after Harry Maguire inspired Manchester United to a last-gasp FA Cup win over Leicester City. United produced a lackluster first-half display, failing to register a single shot on target before heading into the break a goal down. Leicester took advantage of the home side's sluggishness, breaking the deadlock through Bobby D. Cordova-Reid. A notable inclusion in United's starting lineup was Patrick Dorgu, the club's £29 million signing from Lecce. However, Amorim made the unexpected decision to deploy the 20-year-old wingback on the right flank, despite the fact that he had primarily played on the left during his time in Serie A. Scholes voiced his disapproval of Amorim's tactical setup, taking to Instagram to post, "Inverted wingbacks, you saw it at Old Trafford first." His remarks hinted at skepticism over the new manager's approach, particularly in positioning Dorgu in an unfamiliar role on his debut. Following the match, Amorim defended his decision to deploy Dorgu on the right, despite the youngster being withdrawn at half-time. The United boss insisted that the Danish defender had previously played in that position for Lecce and highlighted his versatility as a key asset. He played a lot of times in Lecce on the right. That is one of the characteristics that we pay attention to a lot. To have a player like him, Amorim said, was a little bit anxious in the first touch with the ball. It's a different league for him, a different speed of the game. But he did well. He has space, he has strength, and he's going to improve a lot. And we as a team, we need to play better to help these new guys to perform at the right level. But the position, and you can see in Maresca that he's played in both sides, United's fortunes changed in the second half, following the introduction of Alejandro Garnacho, who added much-needed energy and creativity. Shortly after, Joshua Zirkzee found the back of the net from close range, leveling the score and shifting the momentum in favour of the home side. Despite Leicester's resilience, United snatched victory in stoppage time as Maguire rose highest to head home the winner. The dramatic goal ensured United's progression to the FA Cup fifth round, though replays suggested the goal would have been disallowed had VAR been in use, with Maguire appearing to be in an offside position when the ball was played into the box. After securing an FA Cup fifth round berth, United now turn their attention to their Premier League fixture against Tottenham on Sunday. The upcoming clash presents another key test for Amorim's side, and with the manager's firm belief in Dorgu's positional flexibility, the young wingback may be handed another opportunity to...
Our sports coverage, report and analysis of the FA Cup. The England star forced an own goal early, but the Blues were swiftly pegged back as Brighton came from behind to progress in the FA Cup. With Brighton having lost 7-0 to Nottingham Forest last weekend, Chelsea may have expected to fill their boots when they took the lead within 5 minutes through Cole Palmer in this FA Cup fourth-round clash. But it wasn't to be, as Enzo Maresca's side suffered a 2-1 defeat. A corner was worked to Sancho on the edge of the box, and he flighted a ball into Palmer in the left channel. His attempted cross was horribly fumbled by Bart Verbruggen into the net, and the goal was marked as an own goal. But just 6 minutes later, Brighton were level. A fine ball in from Joel Veltman found Jorginho Rudder, and his powerful header found the bottom corner. In the second half, Chelsea struggled for rhythm and fell behind as Tosin Adarabioyo and Kiernan Dewsbury Hall failed to clear, and Karu Mitoma pounced to lift the ball over Robert Sanchez and complete a remarkable turnaround. Maresca rang the changes thereafter, but the Blues were unable to restore control and have subsequently been knocked out of the FA Cup. The Seagulls, however, soar on. On another note, what's happened to Chelsea's captain, Reece James? James, who has featured for the Blues sporadically in the 2-0, 2-4, 2-5 campaign due to his continuous battle with a debilitating injury record, was left out of the matchday squad that went up against Brighton in the FA Cup on Saturday. The club captain's absence raised a few eyebrows, as many feared that the English right-back might have picked up a fresh injury. But Maresca later revealed the real reason why James was left out. Speaking to reporters after the match, the Italian coach gave a reassuring update on James's condition. He said, "It was planned, he is okay, he is training, but it was to protect him." The West London side failed to progress to the next round of the FA Cup as they went down 2-1 against the Seagulls. The visitors took an early lead courtesy of Bart Verbruggen's own goal, but Jorginho Rita soon brought Brighton back into the game by scoring the equalizer in the 12th minute. Kaoru Mitoma then scored the winner in the 57th minute to eliminate the Premier League giants. The Blues will once again travel to Amex Stadium next week as they take on Fabian Hürzeler's side in a crucial Premier League on Friday.